Well, Art asked me if I'd make some comments about education, and I said I would try to do that in a general way. Data. In the 1940s, the top 7 discipline problems in schools. 1 was talking, 2 chewing gum, 3 making noise, 4 running in the halls, 5 getting out of turn in line, 6 wearing improper clothes, and 7 not putting paper in the wastebaskets. These are the 7 in the 1980s. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, pregnancy, suicide, rape, robbery, assault, and also mentioned were arson, gang warfare, and venereal disease. Now, schools have changed. I told you, I don't think I'd like to be there. They're having to do things. For example, I'm not even sure I belong there. And to put it in perspective, let me tell you a story. 2 little second grade girls talking. One girl said to the other, "I found a condom down by the gazebo." The second little girl said, "What's a gazebo?" That really describes me. Although, you know, out of that, I'm not saying we shouldn't teach sex education. I've had this idea for years. I think sex education should be taught with the English teachers. And after 3 years, everybody would hate it. But the kinds of things that have happened on the national scene have been pretty big. If you're not aware of this, all kinds of allegations are made against the current schools. Kids don't have SAT scores as good. They're not learning as much as they used to. They're not getting a chance to they don't perform as well as their parents did. You know, for the first time in the history of this country, the academic level of the current generation will not come even close to the academic level of their parents. And that's an old thing. You know, you always used to get more education than your father got, he got more than your grandfather got, and so on. And there have been all kinds of things talked about. And the remedies have been rather, I think, not very unique. I mean, the remedies that come out have been more resources, more money for teachers, bigger buildings, bigger this, smaller, large, all those kinds of things we recommended. In our state, what we recommended is a thing called Blueprint for Action. To solve the problems of the year 2000, they're going to have the Blueprint for Action. And I want to remind you, the year 2000 is closer to you than the year 1960. And 2000 isn't way off there. We had our first grandchild. Second time we saw her, they had a little t-shirt on her said, "I will graduate in the year 2000. She technically would be in 1st grade this year. That's where the year class of 2000, you know, think about 1950, that's where the class of, that's protoplasm we're going to have. And yet in the state of Michigan, they're going to reward every school district this year with $38 per student extra if you will do these things. 4 years of English, 3 years of social studies, 2 years of math, 2 years of science." Now you tell me what curriculum that sounds like. That's the exact same curriculum we had in this building when you graduated. That's how you got your Carnegie unit, was every one of those things I just described. And I guess what I'm saying is, if you're going to do something, we can't move backwards. I think we need to be looking at education, how we're going to go ahead. One man said, if you got a 1960 Chevy to put a new carburetor on it, you still have a 1960 Chevy, even though it runs a little bit better. Or a better analogy was the guy who said, when they decided to go to the moon, nobody suggested a DC-10 with 2 extra engines. So I guess what I'm suggesting is the school system which served you, and served me, the one before you, has done very well for us. I mean, I'm very pleased with the education I got. I look back on the years that I was in Milford, and I don't look at very many people that I think got a bad deal compared to what I see in terms of what happening in schools today. I think what we need to do, however, is to be making some change of direction. We're not doing that in education. I think what we're doing in education is much like the story of the guy. 3 guys went up north, up into Canada, to go moose hunting. And so the guy flew them in an airplane and taxied up to the dock. And he said, "I'll be back in 3 days. Just one bit of advice. Don't shoot more than 1 moose. I only got room for 1 moose in the airplane. You like this, Camp?" So he came back in 3 days, taxied up to the dock, and there they are. 3 guys sitting on the bank. Each one's got a moose. 3 moose. So he gets out and he said, "I told you, I don't have room in the airplane for 3 moose." And the guy said, "Hey, we were up here last year with a different company and a different pilot, and we all shot a moose, and he let us put them on the plane." So he said, "Well, okay." So he puts 1 on each pontoon, 1 in the airplane, puts the 3 guys in the airplane. Now, you know he's got a lot of weight. So he goes way down at the other end of the lake, gives it all the power he's got, and waits till the very last second to pull loose from the surface. And as he does, he doesn't have quite enough power. pontoons catch on the trees, spin the plane around, pancakes off in another field. Fortunately, nobody was killed and nobody was seriously injured. But as they're coming to, one guy said, "Hey, Joe." "What?" He said, "Where are we?" He said, "Well, as near as I can figure, about 100 yards further than we were last year." And I think that's what my colleagues in education have been doing. I predict this, and I'll make this very quickly. I predict this. We've gone through phase 1 in education, which is going to be teaching the basics. We went through phase 2, which we're just now into. We've been a long ways into, which is doing everything for everybody. I think the third phase is going to be one in which we start delegating back to the community those things which they can best do. I'm not sure that perhaps the best vocational teachers in certain subjects might be a guy like you. And maybe we ought to pay you for some of those things. I'm not sure what health education ought to be done by the medical society, rather than somebody who had a weekend course on AIDS and going to come in and tell you how to teach that and don't worry about the dangers. That's what scares me about it. All the people who are telling me not to be afraid don't know anything about it. So I can see us moving in that direction. In fact, you know what's been suggested? Who ought to teach driver education? The insurance companies. I mean, think about the logic. And that would be good teaching. See, in my mind, driver education is take driver education, wreck a car. Take driver education, wreck a car. I did that for 4 kids. I thought that was a part of the pattern. What really happened was, what we really need to think about is, what do you think an insurance company that might have to pay $20,000 tomorrow because you wrecked a car? They're going to have good equipment. They're going to turn out good drivers. Well, those are some of the thoughts. I think what we're running into is we're going to delegate some things back, and eventually we're going to go into an educational system rather than a school system. The school will be a part of it, but the whole community will be a part of that. Well, that's all the neat stuff you wanted to hear, I'm sure. Hard for me to come back and recognize that you're all 50. Who would have thought that 30 years ago we could have looked this bad, all of us? But I thought to myself, now what kind of stories will they be in the mood for? So I thought, well, those are the kind of stories that fit me. So I thought about, let me just deal with 4 quick topics, okay? One's fading love. And this was a story about the man who called his wife and he said, "Honey," he said, "guess what?" He said, "I just won the lotto. So start packing." And she said, "Should I pack my heavy clothes or my light clothes?" He said, "I don't care. Pack whatever you want just so you're gone when I get home." Or fading health. A guy went into his doctor and he said to the doctor, he said, "There's something wrong." He said, "I'm not hearing as well as I used to." And the doctor looked at him and he said, "My goodness, man," he said, "you've got a suppository in your ear." The guy said, "Oh, now I remember what I did with that hearing aid." Or children. Now, I think you'll like this one. This is just picturesque. 3 men of the cloth were talking about when life begins. First was a rabbi. He said, "Life begins at birth." And the priest said, No. Life doesn't begin at birth. Life begins at the moment of conception. So they turned to the third guy, who was a Presbyterian minister, and said, "What do you think?" He said, "I think you're both wrong." He said, "Life begins when the dog dies and the kids leave home." And then my favorite subject, grandchildren. I like that bumper sticker said that if I'd known grandchildren were going to be so much fun, I'd have had them first. But we're just loving grandchildren. Now, you look for something to do, find it to do with grandchildren. We have 7. Just had one born a couple weeks ago. Just love the time we spend with them. And it's just amazing to me that grandchildren and grandparents get on so well together. And again, I heard a guy who said, "Why is the grandchildren and grandparents get on so well together?" And the answer is, well, they both have the same one to hate. Well, I've dug into you deeply enough for a period of time. I want to tell you, congratulations on making it through 30 years. Good to see you back again. Thanks for inviting me, Art, Bill. Thanks a lot for including me in the program. And I think probably after